Welcome to the 2013 meeting of Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh.
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy.
Not sure if I messed that date up. August 13th, 2019.
We all knew what you meant.
All right. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
Amen. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Hurd is absent. Mr. Phelan?
Here.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mayor Cole?
Here. Next on the agenda is presentations, and we have an Eagle Scout proclamation for Alan Stanneback. So I'm going to ask the council if they want to come forward with me. I apologize for the miscommunication of the ceremony that you had, so I'll stand up and sign over here. So the proclamation reads, whereas more than 100 years of the Boy Scouts of America have helped mold the future leaders of this country by combining education, activities, and lifelong values with fun. And whereas the involvement of young men in the Boys and Girl Scouts of America, great importance to our community and our country. And whereas the rank of Eagle Scout is the highest honor a Scout can attain in the Boy Scouts of America. And whereas Pequannock Township resident Alan Stanneback has earned the required 21 merit badges to complete a service project by building a utility shed for Pequannock Township Parks and Recreation Department, which is right outside, right in the back. Alan was presented the Eagle Scout Award at a Court of Honor on the 27th day of July 2019, and where Alan's scouting activities and achievements have brought honor to himself, his family, and the community. Now therefore, on behalf of the Township of Pequannock, its residents, Mayor David Cole, and members of the Township Council, hereby recognizing the achievement of Alan Stanneback in attending the rank of Eagle Scout. Congratulations. You're good.
I'm a little nervous, but thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Alan,
Thanks for building the shed.
Yeah, that's a great contribution to the township, and I don't know who was able to make it to the your Court of Honor. Unfortunately, I was on vacation.
It was good.
So I'm sorry I missed it because I love going to all of them.
Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, there was 4 others that received the rank of Eagle Scout the same day Alan did. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it tonight. We're trying to see if we can get it in before they leave for college. But if we can't get it in, then we can do it when they come back for winter break or the holidays from college. So congratulations again, and thank you for building the shed. It's greatly used, so appreciate it. Parents, you want to come up for pictures?
Pictures.
Oops, speechless.
You want to get a picture with all of us?
Hey, sure. Come up and then you.
I'll get a picture with everyone.
You too. You too. Call machines.
Let's squeeze in.
There it goes.
Just 2, yeah. Just in case one of us made a mistake.
Smile.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Elijah Krefeld. He's going to be doing an Eagle Scout project, so we're going to invite Elijah up. It's all yours, Elijah.
He's got a PowerPoint presentation, so we're calling it up real
Oh,
quickly.
okay,
So
all right.
apologize for the AV delay.
Mr. Brewer's experiencing some technical difficulties.
Coming along. Why isn't it coming up?
It will. It's down. Screen's up. It shows the icon on the bottom. Can you move the mouse?
There it is.
All right.
Hi, hello. So today I'm going to talk about my bike repair station Eagle project. I'm a Life Scout in Troop 144, in case you didn't know, which is based right here in Pompton Plains. Alright, so about this project, there's going to be 2 separate parts that make up this project. One is the bike repair station itself, which is Darrow's the company that makes these. The second part is the concrete slab, which the town has graciously offered to pour for us. The third part is the bushes that surround the station, which helps with the beautification aspect. In fact, on the station, there's multiple parts that make it what it is. The hanger arms, as you can see up top, they accommodate most types of bikes. There's a QR code on there that takes you to a website that'll help you fix whatever's wrong with your bike. It includes a lot of tools used to help fix a bike, including an air pump. Included are some screwdrivers, wrenches, and tire levers. And all the tools are secured with braided stainless steel aircraft cables, so no one can just cut them and steal them. So that right there is what the project is going to look like. There's the bike repair station, the concrete slab surrounding it, then there's the bushes, and all of it is surrounded by landscaping timber. And as you can see, right there, that provides where it's going to be, and I'll just get to where that is in just a second. So, brief history on this project. I've been working with Mr. Brewer on this project for a little under a year, and he's been very supportive. I looked at a bunch of different spots for this, like train station or right over there behind the town hall. But after getting input from the Township Engineering Department and Mr. Brewer, I've decided to place it across from PV Park. The yellow is where the park itself is, and that's the parking lot. And right across the road is where the proposed bike trail will go, and the yellow square is our project. And the current status of this, fix something up, even though I've had different pictures showing different colors. The final color of the station will be yellow, as it's easily visible in one of our town colors, blue and gold. The Eagle Advancement Chair, which is determines Eagle Scout projects, has approved this project, and I've begun fundraising to cover the cost of the materials, and the bike repair station itself. In a week of it being up, I've managed to raise a little under half of it, which is very impressive. And we are scheduled to build this on Saturday, September 21st, and September 22nd if necessary. And to conclude, I appreciate the opportunity to present my project to the town council. Very big thank you to the audience and town council for listening, and I hope that you like this idea and approve of the project. Thank you.
Elijah, roughly, what's the cost of the project that you're trying to...
Total, it's about $1,800.
So you raised about 900 already? Great, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job.
Any questions from council? Just to amplify what Elijah mentioned, because of the nature of it and citing it, there have been a lot of conversations about what the best spot was. And although we've talked about the NYSW Trail or whatever ultimately will be named, hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So the dual benefit of providing access through PV Park and people that use it there as well as from...
And where was it? Right on the right side?
If you're walking out of PV Park toward the parking lot, it's across that street.
Right.
And it'll be kind of right by where the trail will be, so it'll be access from the trail as well as from the park. So it'll serve both sites.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so do I. Absolutely.
Good job.
All right, next on the agenda is reports from volunteers. At this time, are there any reports or comments from any volunteers serving our community? Frank, no? All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. The next item on the agenda is public comment. This public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period of public comment is reserved for later in the meeting. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized. Come to the microphone and provide your name and address for the record. Lou?
Lou A. Bear, 11 Copley Court, Pompton Plains. I have a question. I guess everybody's been asking this question all over town anyway, about the water situation in our town. You see a lot of conflicting reports about Newark and the problems that they're having down there, and the news broadcasts that keep coming out talking about Pequannock and Wanacue having problems with the water also, and suggesting that we boil our water here in town as well. The big problem down in Newark, they're saying, is lead rather. And when I read the flyer that was sent out by the town, it talks about the different aspects of items that they're finding in our water here, and it mentions nothing about Newark water. It's a dashes in there. What does that mean? That they don't have any lead in their water? The water that we get from them, that we buy from them.
I'm going to let Mr. Brewer take that part of it, but I'm going to first touch base on what you've been hearing in the news. Mr. Brewer and I had a conversation with Sheriff Gannon, who has a relationship with Mayor Baraka, the mayor of Newark. A number of news agencies have been reporting that if you live in the Pequannock area, Newark has a water treatment plant on Route 23 in West Milford called the Pequannock Water Treatment Plant.
Right.
What they're referring to in the news is if you live in the Pequannock area of Newark that the Pequannock Water Treatment Plant services, that is where the problem is. But the news agencies are not saying that. They're saying that if you live in the Pequannock area, you need to run your water and do everything else that they're doing. Believe me, the mayor of Newark will not be talking about the water quality in Pequannock Township. If anyone is going to be talking about it, it's going to be Mr. Brewer or someone from the water department. So I will let Mr. Brewer discuss what we've had in our water.
Okay, and just to amplify the mayor's comments about the city of Newark, I did have an opportunity to speak to some officials there this morning. You know, they're dealing with 5 homicides in the last week and a public health crisis that's national or international level. So I recognize the concern we have, but I try to be sympathetic to their plight. And we did respectfully ask of their chief of staff to the mayor and the Newark business administrator that if Mayor Baraka could qualify his comments when he next appears on television and mention it's the Pequannock area of the city of Newark, we would be grateful. Again, mindful of the fact that we're dealing with a public relations concern and he's dealing with a massive crisis. Sure. With respect to our water quality, the most recent results were trihalomethanes and halioacetic acids, which are 2 things that we had to send out public notice for in the past. The levels have been beneath the level that requires public notice, so there hasn't been any further notification there, so it's within acceptable limits. I've been drinking the water since the notices went out, before the notices went out, through the time the notices have gone out, and even today. So, I've never had an issue with the water, and I've always wanted to make that statement very clear. With respect to lead and copper, we did have a testing protocol change, which we implemented this year, and 9 of 60 homes exceeded the 15 parts per billion. And again, not to go off too far afield. It was based upon a change in testing protocol where a band of houses that were constructed in a specific time period, which have a higher rate of possibility for lead, were required to be created of a sample size that we had to use to test for the presence of lead and copper. Subsequently, when those results were received, the township engaged an expert. Under his guidance and his direction, we tested the water in the mains around the houses that exceeded the 15 parts per billion and found that there was nothing in the water mains beyond what is typically background, which is less than 1 part per billion to 3 parts per billion of the presence of lead. So although I can't say definitively because I haven't gone in and inspected the plumbing of the homes, the logical conclusion is it's not lead in the water. It's not lead in our infrastructure. We have no knowledge of any lead services in the township of Pequannock.
At our wells?
There's no lead, none in our wells, we know there's none anywhere near our wells, but we have no knowledge of any in any homes, which is really what the city of Newark is having trouble with. They have some 100-year-old water services that are made of lead, and that's what's leaching and creating some of the issues. The pH of our water at the last reading was between 7.65 and 7.9, not to go too far, again, afield into chemistry, but that's not an acidic level, so the likelihood of leaching lead from a pipe is less when you have a pH that exceeds 7.
Yeah.
So there are no advisories for boiling water. There never has been an advisory for boiling water. It's really just been if anybody has a specific concern of a potential health issue, they were free to talk to their own doctors and make their own decision. But the water has never been in a situation where I haven't drank it every day.
Okay.
But to the mayor's point, it is challenging when you have a
No, I appreciate
area, and we did even have a news team come into the township of Pequannock and interview a resident, which is
that's unusual. Yeah,
it is unusual. I don't think there was a clear understanding of the situation by the reporter. But
And just so you know, also, Lou, Newark is the DEP gave Newark the okay to change the way they're treating their water, and we should see that result sometime in October. And the 2 chemicals that we've had in the water in the past is an element of high chlorine, so they're not going to be using chlorine anymore to treat their water in Newark. So we're hoping that once they change the way they're treating the water in Newark, it'll be different. We'll have better results.
Okay. I was looking at your report that you sent out, and that's what I was referring to. And I was just curious why it said nothing in the water. Then I assumed that you're testing it at our wells, at our site here, and there's no lead in there. But you've got three points in there. Where's that coming from?
I'd have to sit with you and look at the report.
That's this one here.
No, I know that. I haven't prepared that right now, so I have to sit with you and see what you're looking at and talk to Peter about it, because there's a tremendous amount of data in that.
Yeah,
I'd be happy.
Sure.
I'd be happy to sit with you and go over it and explain whatever.
I appreciate that. That's good. The only other question I had was when you tested the 9 locations, they were at the houses themselves? At the
60 homes were tested, and there was a kit that was sent to the homeowners with instructions that they were to directly open a tap into the testing jar that is the tap that has been used the least frequently in the home.
Okay. And what was the age range of those homes when they were built?
It ended in 1987, which was when the presence of lead was made illegal to be in copper, right? In solder, excuse me.
Right.
So I forget the starting date, but it ended in 87.
It was prior to 87 then?
Correct.
So they could have had it in their housing, in the property themselves. Could have been by their own plumbing that they had it in there.
One of the homes that exceeded the presence of lead threshold prior to the change in testing protocol was owned by an employee of the township of Pequannock, so I had the opportunity to speak to that individual and learn that it was a condition associated with a faucet. So once that individual changed that faucet, not saying that that's the other 9, just using that as a real life example that I know to be fact.
Okay. And those other 2 elements, Dave, that you mentioned, that is also in the report. You're saying that they're changing their ways down at the...
Yes.
Okay.
No water, yeah.
And all right. I had one other question that mentions in here something about 40% mixture with the water coming in from Newark, and I thought that was 10%.
No, we've been using 60% of our artesian wells and 40% of the Nork water. And you
Right.
got to remember, Lou, the reason why we're in this problem is because everyone complained that the artesian well water was too hard.
Very hard.
Wrecking my dishwasher, my faucets, my shower heads, my tiling.
Yeah.
So we spent millions to build this blending facility, and Nork treats their water differently because it's open bodies of water, and you got birds and fish and everything else. But
Right. Yeah.
we don't use as much chlorine because our water's coming out of the ground. So
It's still hard.
it's a lot better than it has been.
It's better, but
Yeah.
it's still hard, and it's just the buildup that you were going to get for it, but that's it. All right, I thank you very much for your help, and I'll talk.
And let me know, we'll sit down and go over any questions you might have about the report.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, move to the next item. The next item is the manager's report. Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of quick items that were included in the packet. One, and it'll be for consideration of council to introduce the ordinance. The itinerant vendor ordinance, as discussed at the last meeting, was prepared for introduction. The second is you have a resolution to submit for membership in the Morris County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund, which is our current insurance provider for property casualty liability, employee practices, public officials liability. It's a 3-year cycle, so if there are any concerns about that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about what's involved with our membership of the Morris County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. The reports from the Department of Parks and Recreation are included, including the Rangers report and the reports of any saves that were executed at PV Park. And lastly, not on the written report, because it was already to press at the time, I'm just proud to announce that at approximately 12 noon on Friday, we launched the new township website. If anybody hasn't had an opportunity to go to www.peqtwp.org, it is a new website. And the benefit of the new website, it has increased communication tools. People can sign up for notifications. There are a lot of enhancements that exist with the new content management system in addition to just the new organizational structure that's easy to navigate. So I'm very proud. I'd like to thank some of the key staff. Ms. Marsh, Ms. Rizzi of my office, Mr. Coriel worked really hard along with the other department heads and supervisors. I expected it to be done in March or April, and I was optimistic in how easy it would be to get it done. It was much more spaghetti to untangle than I expected. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to do what I can to answer them, but thank you very much.
Any questions? No?
No, I'll wait till we get into it.
Next on the agenda is public hearing, and there are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. Next on the agenda is ordinances for introduction. Ms. Marsh.
For introduction this evening is ordinance number 2019-13, an ordinance amending Chapter 132 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Pequannock and regulating itinerant vending.
Mr. Brewer, any comments?
As we discussed when we reviewed the ordinance has the benefit of creating an enhanced compliance with the applicable case law that is currently out with respect to the regulations of vendors, which is being interpreted by the courts to be speech. So there are certain things that have to be addressed very carefully with respect to that. It creates an ability for residents to post a sign, do not solicit, and an enforcement mechanism therein. And it allows for a continued prohibition of the parking of mobile vendors on streets, so we don't want a bizarre-like atmosphere in the Township of Pequannock.
Are there any comments from council?
Go ahead.
Did we say that we wanted the people of the township to know that just because they're registering with the township, we are not vetting these people?
Can you do that, Bob?
How we publicize that. I mean, we can certainly put something up, we can write a release that the ordinance has been adopted. This is what we're doing.
We can do an announcement about it.
Right, only because I don't want people knocking on their door and they say, oh, I'm
Yeah.
registered with the town. I
Yeah.
don't want people to think that we check them in any way, shape, or form, because we're not.
We can put on they have to carry around a list of registered, write the registration list. We can print on there. I mean, I'm not saying people will read it, but we can write it on it, so when that they carry it around, they have to have that.
That would be something that might be a good idea, just so people know that just because they're registered, we didn't do a background check, we have no idea who these people are, we're not vouching for them.
And currently, we have a license where we're issuing a license, so going to a registration process is better than a license, but there still can be an implied.
Right, that's what I just
Permission.
want to make sure there's no implied.
Melissa?
I was going to bring up the same thing, and also just in a nutshell, so the main differences between the old ordinance and the new one is basically that they have the ability to put out a no solicitation sign,
Correct.
which we didn't have in the ordinance before. Did the fee change? I'm trying to think.
Yes.
The fee changed slightly from before, and there was, I think, at least one, I'm just trying to get all the main differences. The other one really had to do with registration.
Yeah, we're not doing
Versus the granting of a license.
Right, and it was just the registration. So those are the main point differences. Okay.
Rich, anything?
Just for everybody's benefit.
Is there a motion to introduce this ordinance on its first reading?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2019-13.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd? I'm sorry, is absent. Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Yes. Next on the agenda is Resolution Miss March. It's a really long list from what I understand.
I apologize for the number of times I'm going to trip on this. Beginning with our Resolution 2019-169, authorizing the discretionary award of a contract for improvements to the animal shelter at 11 Washington Street to Get It Done Home improvements for the additional amount of $3,565, bringing to a total contract amount of $20,575. Resolution 2019-170, authorizing the chief financial officer to encumber the amount of $90,848 from the township's open space recreation farmland and historic preservation trust fund. 2019-171, authorizing a grant agreement with Morris County for a 2019 historic preservation trust fund grant that's for the Martin Berry House interior rehabilitation. 2019-172, authorizing a grant agreement with Morris County for a 2019 Historic Preservation Trust Fund grant. That's for the Martin Berry House Phase 3 construction documents. 2018-173, authorizing the discretionary award of a contract for the Public Works work order system in the amount of $26,650 in accordance with the quotation provided. 2019-174, authorizing submission of a 2020 New Jersey Department of Transportation Local Aid Infrastructure Fund grant application, and to execute a grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the Hillview Guide rail upgrades. 2019-175, renewing membership in the Morris County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund for a 3-year period beginning January 1st, 2020 and ending January 1st, 2023. 2019-176, authorizing cancellation of outstanding checks. And the next 4 all read the same way except for the purpose. It's providing for the insertion of a special item of revenue for the 2019 budget pursuant to NJSA 40A:487, which is Chapter 159 of Public Law 198. The first is for the Martin Berry House interior rehabilitation. Our 2019-178 is for the Martin Berry House construction documents. 2019-179 is for the Municipal Alliance grant. And 2019-180 is for the Municipal Alliance supplemental funds. Our 2019-181 is approving the renewal of the designated alcoholic beverage control licenses. 2019-182, approving the transfer of the alcoholic beverage control, that should be preliminary retail distribution license from B&B Liquors Incorporated to N.R. Krishna LLC. 2019-183, authorizing release of refundable permit bonds. 2019-184, authorizing release of designated escrow deposits. And 2019-185, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the August 8th, 2019 bill list and the August 8th, 2019, 2015, and 2016 FEMA elevation escrow lists.
Very good job, Pat.
Not too bad. Thank you.
Are there any comments on the resolutions from council?
Mine were small. Do you have any?
No, nothing really big.
Yeah, I mean, mine was small, and I apologize, I didn't get to call you earlier today. One was, I just wanted to make sure I knew where this one figure came from. On Resolution 2019-169, it talks about the funds being available and not to exceed the 4730. Is that because they put,
So this...
I thought that number was supposed to be the 35.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the 3,565.
All right, so that's just typo.
Correct.
Okay.
That was married with the
Got it.
other added on.
All right, and then my other thing is looking at the proposal. I know it talks about how it's our responsibility to get the materials out before they do the work, but as far as I noticed, some line items had them also, if they demo something and they have to remove it, they also...
Correct, and the majority of the work has been done. Now
It's been done,
Now
okay.
we're into the ceiling, and there may actually be a subsequent
so we don't-
resolution because once the ceiling was explored, it was determined there was no insulation.
Right, okay, yeah.
So we may come back and I may have another couple $1,000
That's
so we
what I
can
was
insulate the building.
Yeah, I was just looking at stuff like that.
Fortunately, it was one of those
Yeah.
onions that with each layer,
Okay.
more
And then-
And they're still,
it's well within the grant amount.
Yeah.
grant amount.
Okay. No, and I just want to, as far as the grants on the Martin Berry House and everything, I mean, I think that's just wonderful that kudos to everybody that was involved in that. And then my last one was on Resolution 2019-173, same thing. I think it's just a typo. There was a number on, that
It should be
says-
2660
Okay,
as well.
instead of that 2960. All right.
A lot of typos lately.
And other than that, I'm good. Sorry, I just didn't have a chance to tell you. I thought that's all it was, but I wasn't sure. And I normally will email you beforehand.
Kyle?
No, I'm good.
No? Rich, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
And I'll bring it up now, just as a reminder, next meeting, we're meeting at 6 o'clock at the animal shelter
animal
for
Right.
the ribbon cutting or whatever we're actually doing there, so.
That's great.
All right, is there a motion to adopt these resolutions?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-169 through Resolution 2019-185.
Is there a second?
A second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is item for discussion, and it's the sewer utility rates, and it's my understanding that some council had concerns about discussing it tonight, and wanted to possibly move it to a separate meeting. I'm going to ask Mr. Brewer just to give us an overview of what we were going to discuss.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. There's a continuation of discussion that really originated back in 2016 and was continued most recently during the 2019 budget meetings. The sewer utility has engaged in significant expansion over the recent years. There's a memorandum from me that is included with a number of exhibits to go over the current status of the utility for the benefit of the public's knowledge. The township has added approximately $38 million worth of authorizations to the sewer utility over the last 30 years, and many of these projects recently came to conclusion. The village area project added the 400 homes as an assessment project, and in 2018 as well as 2019, sources of non-recurring revenue were utilized to balance the utility's budget. So as discussed back in February, I believe, a rate study was undertaken to determine, what rates would be necessary to support the operations of the sewer utility. Within the memo, it really discusses two significant sources of revenue. One are sewer rents, which is the annual fee that residents pay to participate in the sewer, and the other is connection or capacity fees. We call it a connection/capacity in our ordinance. In other municipalities and state law, it's typically referred to as a connection fee. So it was an abundant amount of information, as the mayor pointed out, and as some people asked questions about. The goal is to initiate the discussion, get the information out to the members of council, have it reviewed, vetted, and ultimately the goal will be to have a new rate in place in January of 2020. Otherwise, there will be a concern about utility maintaining its balanced budget and being self-liquidated.
So Adam, I guess my concern was because of the typo in here, I thought this was going to be taken effect immediately, and by the way, we're going to fact check everybody.
Yes, and if I could interrupt the councilman real quickly regarding the typo, unfortunately, in the 6-page memo in the last paragraph, I referenced January 1 of 2019 as opposed to 2020.
Right, which is why I said, well, wait a minute, this is just flying too fast here.
Right. No, the goal was to have this discussion well in advance, as we discussed in February.
So, let me ask you a question. How many segments do you think we can break this down to?
The first thing I would recommend the council to consider would be the connection or capacity fee.
Okay, so that's one segment.
Yeah, and just if I could touch on that briefly, there's a statutory calculation that describes specifically how to calculate that number. Currently, we're charging a little under $1,200. There's a formula. The calculation was run. It's not saying that's the recommended fee. It's not saying that's the fee you should have. It just says, based upon the statutory formula, that is the maximum fee. It's council's prerogative to say we want it where it is, we want it there, we want it anywhere in between, and we can discuss different rationales for coming to that conclusion. Based upon whatever the decision is on the connection/capacity fee, that may have an impact, though not significant or significant, no impact will be drastic, but it will have, if it's a greater number increase, it will have a greater impact on the sewer rental fees. Then we can have a conversation about the sewer rental fees. So first, I would say is connection fee. Then I would say the rental fee conversation.
Do we know what the surrounding towns have for a connection fee?
We do.
How similar are they to our 1,200?
So for the benefit of the audience that doesn't have the packet in front of them, the current rate we've charged for connections is under $1,200. The statutory calculation to determine the maximum possible is just shy of $13,000. So the range is pretty significant.
$13,000?
Correct. In the time period since the connection fee was last updated and now, the utility has invested roughly $33 million. One of the purposes of the calculation of the connection fee is to include past improvements of the system so that someone who's a new participant shares in some of that burden. So that's why the statutory calculation assigns that amount. So, yes, it is a significant difference, but during that same time period, there's been a significant expansion.
How many more houses have to hook up?
Well, no, this new fee would not be for anyone in the village.
It wouldn't affect...
Well, anyone who hasn't connected, if anyone in the village has not connected, regardless of the requirement to, and a fee change was implemented, it would affect anybody that hasn't hooked into when they were supposed to in the time period.
So, just a real quick question. How many people have not hooked up yet? Rough number.
Just under 50. And they are currently in the municipal court process.
So we have 50 people appealing it from the village?
No, 50 people who haven't complied.
They just haven't complied.
Okay. And how many people are appealing from the last?
I believe it's 9 or 10 properties.
It is. I believe it's 10.
10. And we haven't settled any of those yet?
We have one on for discussion tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Bob, let me ask you a question.
Is that just...
The appeal process always comes back in front of us like it is tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so say someone else comes 2 weeks down the road, it still has to come back in front of us, so we will know.
If we're going to settle an appeal, you will know, because we'll get approval here before we do so.
Okay.
And there will be no more appeals filed, because they're out of time to file appeals.
Right, they had a certain amount of time.
Correct, and that's passed, that's long
But
passed.
that's only if we settle it. What if they go to court and we just lose, or?
Which still has to come in front of us.
So you'll know, because you're going to have to pay we'll have to talk about what we have to pay, so you'll know, and I'll keep you abreast. We're not going to go, if we go to trial in any of them, we'll talk about it before we go.
All right, so back to my original question. What's the surrounding towns?
The surrounding towns, and the challenge with the comparison is, even though there's proximity, they may not have updated their connection fee either in a significant period of time, or they may not have invested what's been invested in their sewer utility at the same period of time. The range is, I think, $7,200 in Bloomingdale, roughly. As the high, they amended theirs in 2009, and the low would be us at the moment. Outside of us, it would be either Wayne at $1,800 or Butler, at $1,500. And Butler last updated theirs in 1997. So.
Okay, so we have an idea of what we have to do with that, okay.
Right, so there's, and again, that's the council's prerogative, but if it were to break it into different compartments, if you will, almost like the budget process, I would recommend we schedule a discussion to talk about the connection fee. We can dive into that with some more detail, and then, like I said, segue into rents, discuss the sewer utility as a whole, and then come up with a recommendation for the preparation of an ordinance.
So
Okay, but we're not under the gun, right?
3 to 4 meetings.
No, three to four meetings, or as many as the council would like to have.
3 to 4 meetings, as long as we have something in place so that we can...
For January 1, 2020.
Okay.
And we also need to have time to do the resolution.
The ordinance.
Of the ordinance.
We need 2 meetings,
Right,
correct.
2 meetings.
Okay, but that gives us time to...
So we should be on firm ground by November, absolutely.
Right, we can review this more carefully instead of getting it on a Friday and talking about it on Tuesday.
Does anyone have...
The only way for us to discuss things, unfortunately, is through
No,
discussion.
I
So that's the
understand that, but
challenge.
when you put when you give something that's 42 pages long,
Correct.
I need time to look at it.
Just getting the ball rolling, Councilman.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions right now that they want Adam or Mr. Brewer to look into?
I just want us all to understand that the water rate is going up significantly next year.
Well-
Is that a correct statement?
No, the water rate was increased January 1 of 2019.
Yes, going
There's
up
a
again.
nominal increase in 2020. It's nothing compared to what it went up
Okay.
in January.
You sure you don't have that backwards?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's 4%.
And we haven't changed the sewer rental fees since 2017.
1998.
I mean,
99.
The fee.
the fee.
No, the rental fee?
Connection fee.
No, the rental fee, correct.
Right.
Rental fee last went up in 2007.
Well, we went from 2010, 740 to 2017, 780.
Right.
So we did a big span there
Oh, yeah.
for a
Right.
period of time.
Oh, absolutely.
But the numbers now is just, that's a big jump.
Yeah, the
Correct,
last
and again,
time it was a
I
big
recommend
span was in
that
2000.
anybody who hasn't had the opportunity to review the previous manager and finance officer's recommendation from 2016, there were recommended increases in that document.
And
I remember him talking about it.
So while the delta isn't desirable, it's less significant.
And just so we're clear, this $11 million TVSA debt is not really an $11 million debt.
Correct.
It's used to calculate what we can do.
It is a component of the statutory calculation, correct. And it's monies paid to TBSA over the lifespan of the utility.
All right.
So,
So what do we want to do? Do we want to take small parts at the next meeting?
Yeah, that would probably be the way to
All right,
do
so
it.
we're gonna
We're just gonna
plan it,
chip at it.
the rate fee, whatever we're gonna do, the first one you mentioned.
We'll schedule connection/capacity fee for discussion on the 27th of August.
We'll discuss that, and then
I'll-
we'll have another one at the next meeting, and then another one.
I just have a quick question. So when you have a sewer line and then you add more people to the sewer line, shouldn't the costs go cheaper because you have more?
Economy of scale.
Economy of scale.
Economy of scales.
So what happened to that?
In terms of...
Scale broke.
Yeah, no, that's what we were told
Well,
previously, that because you have more users come on, the fees should not.
It should be lower, because if it's just going to keep going, then why are we even bothering to do Route 23 if we're just going to have to charge people more?
There's an element of the economy of scale, but with the volume of expenditures, and again, there's an articulation or an enumeration of authorizations. And if you cross-reference the enumeration of authorizations in the memo and you compare that to the rates, when the utility spends lots of money to expand,
Yeah,
the rates go up.
and that's why.
Because whether you have more users or not, if you spend $33 million in 20 years, that's going to have an impact on the overall health of the operation of the plant.
And I think sewering 23 is gonna help us
Yeah.
tax-wise.
Well, supposedly sewering, the village
we
is
gonna
going to
get
help
extra
everybody with the
business?
sewer fees.
Are we going to get extra business because of that sewer?
You never know. let's just say this. I mean, you're not going to see a hotel be built on Route 23 that has to have septic.
That's for sure.
You may see a hotel built in now that has a sewer, possibly. You may see more restaurants come in that have sewers rather than septic.
I hope you're right.
You're not going to know until we do it, I guess.
How are we doing with that, with asking everybody? How many are we down to?
We have hit 50%.
It's a long way to go. It took a long time to get to 50%.
And I think the unfortunate thing is the people who were quick to respond were quick to respond. And the people who are going to be slower to respond, I've heard of some interesting issues on Route 23, and I'm having conversations with professionals and property owners, and we're working at it. I think one of the things, we'll have to consider all of our options in terms of how to best execute this project.
I do remember being told that the sewer authority was not in the greatest shape by the prior manager. So we knew this was coming sooner or later.
And you got to remember, we did spend quite a bit of money boring underneath Route 23 to do Route 23. So I would strongly suggest not do Route 23 now.
Right.
We've already spent a ton of money with the design, boring underneath in 2 spots of Route 23, one by Goodwill and one by Plaza 23 Diner. So it's on the other side. We just got to connect it.
I think with the status of the project to sewer Route 23, regardless of the easements and that dynamic, I think we're in a position where we need to proceed with getting that project to fruition. That's a very high priority.
And the main reason, Kyle, we did the village was at the request of the health officer, because when it flooded, things just rise and float away, which really isn't the best for anyone, so.
So we will schedule the discussion of the connection/capacity fee for a more in-depth discussion on the 27th, and greater materials will be shared with the council for that meeting.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Next is reports and notices, and there are no reports or notices for tonight. Next on the agenda is council reports and announcements. Councilwoman Florence Lynch.
Okay, a couple of things. The Flood Committee met on August 8th. And just to give you a quick update on the home elevation projects, there's about 16 homes completed with another 15 under construction. There's another 9 with plans in the development stages. So most of those homes, or most of those homes were 2015 and 16 grants. There's 15 homes from the 2018 elevation grant that were all successful, and we're just waiting for the appropriation on those. So that's probably like 12 to 18 months out from
from the federal government.
Yeah,
so everybody understands.
congressional.
They awarded a significant grant for the elevation of additional homes, but now Congress has to fund it.
Right. What else? We're compiling the list of interested homeowners for 2019 elevation applications for that grant process. So if anyone's interested, they should contact the flood advocate, Jennifer McCulloch. And I think the application for that is expected to be released in late fall of this year for submission. I also know that Jennifer contacted the Silver Jackets Division of the Army Corps of Engineers, and we're waiting to hear back. I guess they can assist with small non-structural hazard mitigation projects, look at things like evacuation routes if you wanted to, put that in place.
I mean, if you don't mind, Councilwoman, there's been a lot of discussion within the flood committee and the residents as a whole of creating a handbook. And one of the things I think they really would like to do is create a handbook that can be used for preparedness for people. So that's a big initiative that group's going to help us with. Hopefully.
Right. Good. Yeah. I know Eric from H2M came to the flood meeting, and there was a lot of good conversation there. I don't know if you got an update from him yet, but you'll be getting a summary of some of the things that came out of that they're going to incorporate into the master plan process and talk about. And as we all know, I guess you already mentioned that the township website's up and running, and I guess the flood phone app is supposed to go up as well. I don't know if that's up yet, right?
That's not directly related to the website initiative, but I
Right.
know it was a priority for them to update it.
Right, okay. What else? And then everybody probably knows this already, but Senator Menendez proposed the National Flood Insurance Program Reauthorization Act. So that's reauthorizing the NFIP for another 5 years, extending it to September 30th, 2024. And so that would be, that'll be good for homeowners, business owners, and the entire real estate market. And I guess we're still waiting for the Scientific Resolution Panel review, right? From
Correct.
FEMA for their tax map appeals.
Yeah, the preliminary flood information rate maps that there were issues with, the township filed an appeal to have those issues corrected. FEMA denied the appeal somewhat arbitrarily and capriciously, just my opinion. And therefore, we filed for a scientific review panel to be impaneled, which is an independent group. And through my conversations with associated folks, because Wayne filed for one and was successful in having the maps changed, there's some thought that that might impact the Township of Pequannock's maps. There was an appeal or a filing for a scientific resolution panel by the Township of Pequannock, the Township of Montville, and the Borough of Lincoln Park. So I think that's also a contributing factor in the delay in them getting back to us on getting this moving. But we are remaining actively engaged and
Do we have an approximate?
We're waiting for them to
Just
get
wait.
back to us.
we're waiting for them, unfortunately.
We're waiting.
Which
Wait,
has
wait.
the adverse effect of
Hurry up and
people
wait.
who are impacted, putting them in limbo, which is unfortunate and a terrible thing to do to the residents.
Yeah, okay. What else? Economic Development, they will be meeting on Wednesday, September 25th, and Eric from H2M will be at that meeting as well with that committee for master plan input. And the only other thing I wanted to say, not to steal the mayor's thunder, I'm not sure if you were going to mention this, but we were invited to the Company 2 picnic this past Saturday, so thank you to Company 2 for inviting us to that. That was a lot of fun. And I just wanted to say one other big plug, if you don't mind. Pequannock Valley Rotary is having a charity golf outing on Friday, September 6th. And that's going to benefit CASA, which is the court-appointed special advocates, and New City Kids. So if anybody wants to participate in that, just reach out to one of the Rotarians. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Phelan?
Thank you for mentioning the picnic there, Melissa, on Saturday. It was a lot of fun, Company 2's picnic. Company 2 is having a fish fry on October 17th, and Company 1 is having a beefsteak sometime in October. I don't remember the exact date. Do you know what date? I didn't think so.
We just got that, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
We just got that.
Yeah, a person who works for me is running it, and I'm the last to know.
You won a prize last year with my ticket.
Yeah, the beefsteak. It's at the same place as before. The planning board is about to hire an engineer to work separate from the township engineer, and that will be voted on the 19th, I believe it is. That's it.
All right. Councilwoman Russell?
Well, Melissa just reminded me to tell
Yep.
everybody the hoedown September 14th, rain date of September 15th. Also, Adam, if you could explain to everybody, because I know it got a little bit out of hand on Facebook, is the fire pit at PV Park. We are not just taking that Eagle project and throwing it out. Please explain to everybody what's really going on, because the stories went wild.
Yes, Councilwoman, I appreciate you reaching out and having the conversation as well and giving me a heads up. So there's a fire pit in the vicinity of the PV Park main building with the bathrooms and the office, and it was an Eagle Scout project. And the challenge, as discussed with the fire official, is he's reluctant, if not opposed, to issuing a permit for the use of the fire pit during regular PV Park operations. So that's not to say that the fire pit was built in a place that's a problem. It's just that there's certain safety concerns associated with open flame and people running around and everything else. It has been used for special events of the townships. It has been used for special events where I know some of the scouting troops have had campouts there and other dynamics where it's a controlled environment, because a permit does have to be issued for its use. So it is not being destroyed, removed, converted into a planter or
People are like, oh, you're just throwing it away.
or anything
No,
else. It is
no,
remaining there.
don't
It is going to be a
touch
subject of discussion later when globally PV Park is discussed about how we want to approach that as a component of the amenities of the park, but, it is not being
Now,
discarded.
if somebody is having something late night and they want to get it, they just have to go pull a permit. And do they have to pay the $75, $85 for a permit?
The first thing would be they would obviously have to go through the Parks and Recreation Department to get access to PV Park. Once they do that, then they would see the fire official. I don't know the cost of the
Okay,
permit
because
offhand.
then they were saying that it was
And just
I was trying to tell people what it means basically is that, you can't just be there one day and be like, yeah, I want a fire and just
Well,
start a
roast
fire and nobody's
marshmallows.
monitoring it and maybe you walk away and maybe somebody's not monitoring it. So it's
And just so
really
everyone
for
knows,
safety.
the fire official trumps the town manager.
Right.
When it comes to
When
something
it comes
like
to
that.
fire.
Correct.
But the people that, I know there was one or two groups that have used it in the past, have they been notified and do they know the process now for?
I think that was always the
Getting that?
process. I
Okay.
think
Yeah,
somebody
the
just
process hasn't changed.
It
I think there was
hasn't
just a
changed.
rumor that grew legs,
Right.
and then
I
Facebook
think-
helped that along,
Got it.
and it
I
turned
think
into...
somebody on a Saturday just wanted to start a fire and they said, no, you can't, it's not safe.
Right.
And they took that into, they said it was unsafe. So
Why do you have a
Because
fire
it was
pit
hot,
if you
it was
can't have a
kept us
fire?
warm at the polar
Right.
plunge.
Unfortunately, government is involved.
Makes everything 10 times more complicated. I don't make the rules, I just try to keep the boat between the navigational beacons.
And my favorite saying is, I don't write the music, I just play the song.
There you go.
And that's all
That's
I
it.
have. Thank you, Adam.
All right. First Aid Squad met last night. For July, they had 57 calls. On 8/1, I attended the grand opening of Forward Motion Physical Therapy, which is right next to Panther Park. 8/5, Rich and I both were at the planning board meeting. On 8/9, Mr. Brewer and I had the opportunity to have lunch with the branch manager of Chase Bank. Their projected grand opening date is October 8th. I think he's very aggressive with October 8th. I don't think there's anything really been done to the inside, but they have been making great strides on the outside of that building, so we'll see. He said he definitely would keep us updated on the date. And yes, Company 2 had the picnic on Saturday. It was a nice event. Unfortunately, Angela and I were only able to stay for roughly an hour, and then we had another party to go to.
That's okay, Dave, I came in behind you, so no big deal.
So we spread it out. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized. Come to the microphone and provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Spazzeri.
Frank Spazzeri, 35 West Franklin Avenue. First, I have to apologize for not getting here early enough to read the resolutions in the book, but looks like somebody's got their fingers in the cookie jar for open space for $90,000. Can anybody explain to me what that is, please?
Yes, those are the cash matches associated with the Martin Berry House grants, because the open space also has historic preservation as a component of it for the purposes of preservation.
Okay.
We have a $240,000 levy that'll be collected this year, as well as $76,000 that was just gotten back for the Giddy property, which closed on sometime around 2012. So we don't believe it'll have any impact on the health of the fund.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't read the book before.
That's okay. Good question.
That's it, Frank? All right, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, next on the agenda is minutes for approval, July 23rd, 2019. Is there any comments on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 23rd, 2019.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda, we have items for closed discussion. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2019-186, authorizing the town council to meet in executive session to discuss matters of attorney-client privileges related to affordable housing, buy-down, and defined contribution retirement plan, and litigation of Anello versus Pequannock?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? And please note, there may be formal action taken after the closed session.
This has been pre-recorded.
Thank God there's a script.